You are listening to Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. In this podcast, we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies for reducing your reliance on insurance. Join us as we interview industry experts, share success stories, and provide valuable insights to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome to an amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. This is Narain, one of the co-founders and co-host of this podcast. Today, I'm excited to be talking to my dear friend, Ben Chune. Hey, Ben, how are you this evening?
Hey, Darren. Great to chat with you again. Looking forward to this topic.
Yeah, the topic is going to be interesting. The topic we're going to be covering today is it possible to detect claims processing errors on the part of insurance? Is it possible to detect claims processing errors on the part of insurance? So let me ask you a quick question as we dive into it. Do you see a lot of claims processing errors on the part of insurance based on your experience?
Oh yeah. So this is the part that when you deal with claims errors in the practice, a lot of times team members won't know. But they go on all the time. I'm going to share a few stats. So from the American Medical Association, which that association and their members, they deal with the bulk of claims as it pertains to healthcare. So they do a lot better in terms of tracking, developing statistics, because in dental you deal with a few $billion. In medical, you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in claims, So they say that 19.3% is the current claims processing error rate. And what they're mostly finding is a lot of claims being underpaid. So in dental, we're starting to see that. In fact, I was able to detect that a few years ago, Naren. I had a client here in Utah. To protect their name and our, of course, privacy agreement with them. I won't share the name, but everybody makes purchases from them in the world. So it's a very well-known company. So they were negotiating with an insurance carrier to redesign their own plan design for their own employees. They contacted me to help them create a plan design that was beneficial for the dentist, mainly because the owner of this business is a dentist and a practicing dentist at that. So when we created the new plan design, we eliminated the downgrades on many things, like your posterior composites. A lot of employers would downgrade those down to amalgam, silver fillings, right? Build-up policies, making them strict so that practices have a hard time getting paid. We eliminated those restrictions. We essentially eliminated a lot of the restrictions and the problems that dentists see when they submit claims to insurance carriers, because this particular business owner recognized the importance of paying adequately on the benefit side of things when their employees see a dentist. Well, a few months later, after the plan design was implemented, the practice of this business owner, the practice administrator, contacted me and said, I thought we eliminated the downgrades for all employees for this group. And yet the insurance company is still downgrading, and they're telling us that we can't collect the difference from the patient on the EOB, which of course is a major mistake on the part of the insurance company. So we detected that mainly because we were part of the development of that plan design. But what about the thousands of other dentists that are treating employees of this group nationwide? Would they be able to detect when an insurance company is making a mistake like that? And the answer to that question, Aaron, is no. Nobody can, right? Because you're relying on the insurance company to be truthful. And I think for the most part, when you look at the error rate and the correct rate, they're still leaning on the majority side of being right. But I think a 20% error rate is still immoral, right? It seems to me that a lot of the mistakes are intentional to help the insurance company save money on claims. So to answer your question, Aaron, yes, those errors happen every single day for every practice. You're dealing with those claims errors right now, which results in a reduction in what you get to collect, overall for those treatment plans.
Makes sense. I guess it's good business for the insurance company, right? The less claims they pay, the more money the executives make, the fat cats make.
Oh
So
yeah.
I mean, it's like it's an quote unquote a mistake, but it's a mistake that actually helps them. So
Hmm.
I understand why because I mean they're not stupid, right? I mean, 19% error rate, like 19% of the claims. I mean, I mean, they're doing it because I guess it makes sense financially.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And you're absolutely right. It's 100% driven to minimize claims payouts to doctors,
Right.
sadly.
Can you be specific and explain what kind of mistakes do you see insurance companies making in 2024?
Yeah, so what comes to mind, like a few, for instance, like a patient when their employer used to have one dental plan and then they switched to a new dental plan. So this example is a patient that is in active perio protocols, right? So in order for you to activate the perio cleaning, which is referred to as perio maintenance, that's code 4910. A lot of times when a patient is a healthy mouth patient, a prophy patient, 1110, and in order for you to activate the perio maintenance protocols, you have to do certain things. For instance, most insurance carriers want to see a minimum of 2 quads of scaling and root planing. They want to see osseous surgery or gingival flap surgery to have sort of a scientific foundation that, yes, the patient is in periodontal disease, which according to the Periodontal Society, once a patient's in periodontal disease, they're in it for the rest of their life, right? Or at least that's what the science shows, although there are some exceptions, but that's what the science currently shows. So in order for you to activate that higher cleaning, the higher paid cleaning, the 4910, you have to do one of those things. So I just dealt with a case where the patient's employer switched to a new insurance and the patient started receiving, well, it's continued their perio treatment, right? They submitted the claims to the new insurance company, and the new insurance company paid them for a couple of rounds. And then the practice got a refund request because once the insurance plan reviewed their records, they said, well, you haven't done scaling and root planing, gingival flap surgery, or any of the things that would qualify for perio maintenance. So therefore, we're correcting all those EOBs down to prophy. And now the patient has to get a refund on what they paid for perio maintenance, and the practice has to refund the insurance company, right? So the insurance plan is completely ignoring the fact that there's history, right? They're taking over a case, well, insurance for a patient that has already been in perio maintenance. So that's a mistake because on the part of the insurance carrier, because normally they would request documents, and if they did receive those documents, they're just ignoring them, right? Where they're now sort of interfering with the patient's treatment plan as it pertains to the the patient's perio maintenance protocols. So that's one example. Another example are buildups. So a lot of times the buildups are covered by the dental plan, but the dental plan will bundle it with they'll bundle the buildup with the crown reimbursement. Most insurance carriers, you just need to let them know what the seat date is. But a lot of practices have been calling insurance companies and letting them know what the seat date is. And still, there's a determination for the insurance carrier to not unbundle the buildup from the crown. So when you talk about that particular dollar amount, Naren, like if you look at the rate of buildups not being paid in any dental practice and extrapolate that out to all the dental practices, I mean, you're talking about several $100 million worth of unpaid claims to dental practices on an annual basis, you know. Downgrades are another area, right? Where, like what I talked about with that other client here in Utah. So the downgrades where insurance carriers would downgrade and then disallow the practice from collecting the difference up to the actual procedure fee that was performed. You see all these kinds of determinations that are listed on EOBs, and most practices don't even know that they're wrong. So that's one of the biggest challenges, because even we are finding out that there are policy differences from one patient that has Delta Dental to another patient that has Delta Dental. Their plan designs are totally different, but we make assumptions in the dental practice because it's hard to detect those things. So, you know, in dental practices, you sort of keep things simple in terms of having a system and protocols to vet out patients' benefits called insurance verification. But even with all those methods, what we're still finding is that the rate of error on the part of insurance companies are still very high.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, let's jump into the third question. How would one know if there is a mistake that insurance made? Let's say I'm a practice owner or I process claims from the practice. I'm in charge of it. How would I know there's a mistake?
So one office manager detected this, which I think is hard to see these patterns with all that goes on in dental office. So this is not necessarily, in my opinion, this is not something that we should beat up the front office, right? Because they're not the ones that write the insurance policies. We just deal with them the best that we can. So one area that this one office manager found is that she had two patients, same family, which means they had the same exact plan design. So and they had similar treatment, right, between a couple of different family members. And of course, the claims, the EOBs came in at separate times because treatment scheduled and performed and delivered for these family members were on different dates of service. But on the treatment categories that were the same, the insurance plan downgraded on one EOB that procedure, and then on the other they didn't, right? And so if you when you're building your coverage tables, it's important for you to build your coverage tables based upon employer as well as sub IDs under that employer, right? So a good example is that for some employers, you'll have 3 or different subcategories, right? You have the one sub ID that's for the executives, 3,000 annual max, and then the second ID, which is the mid-tier plan, mostly mid-level management, $2,000 annual max. And then the third tier are for, those that don't want to pay the 2 other high tiers, which is where most of the people are at under this employer group, and it's only a $1,000 annual max, right? So the problem that we see in most practices is they don't build that data correctly. So when they get the patient that comes in with the common employer ID, they ignore the sub ID and assume that all these patients have the $3,000 annual max and treatment plan accordingly, right? So in the dental practice, we kind of make these mistakes mainly because there's so much to keep up with, right? You're dealing with 400 different payers and thousands upon thousands of different employers, and many employers that have multiple sub IDs, multiple different plan designs for their employees to pick from. So with that said, if you build your coverage tables correctly, some of you might think that's the blue book or another area of your practice, depending on the title within your practice management system. But if you build the benefits correctly for that employer group, what you'll find is that when you get your claims paid, or at least when you're going through the patient's coverage tables, you'll be able to see what's covered and what's not, what's downgraded and what's not. And it takes time to build those coverage tables because you're relying on EOBs to come in from, after you submit claims so that you can build that data in your practice management system. But to me, that's the best way to do it is you build your coverage tables on a per employer basis, and you make sure that those coverage tables are updated regularly. And that way, when things are downgraded when they shouldn't, the system will tell you that, oh yeah, that's actually a covered code. It shouldn't have been downgraded, right?
Yeah, I mean, just listening to you talk, Ben, my head is spinning. What I mean is like, just to get paid what, the doctors deserve to get paid, they have to fight tooth and nail, and it's just so complicated, right? So I think the best defense is the best offense. I mean, imagine winning an NBA championship or any championship without an offensive team, right? You can't, because somebody has to put points on the board. So start putting yourself in that offensive position. Start getting patients who are not PPO patients with marketing and membership plans, and then start dropping the worst PPO plans. Like, say enough is enough. Of course, if you don't have that line in the sand, and you just keep tolerating and tolerating and tolerating, they'll just keep moving the line even further, even further. So eventually you just have like no room to breathe. You just, like all the things we are talking about right now.
So, oh yeah, it's complex for a reason. And what you mentioned there is a solution, right? Distancing yourselves from, these insurance carriers over time is a really good idea for the reasons that we're talking about, right? It's a complex issue to deliver treatment and then to get paid for it, right?
Yeah, I think delivering treatment is 10 times easier than getting paid for it. It's almost like you're guilty until proven innocent. So it's almost like we won't pay you unless you really jump through all these hoops.
Right.
and we're going to make it
Right.
as hard as possible for you to jump through.
Yeah.
Let's assume on a temporary basis, somebody says, I'm going to put up with this, I'm going to keep being on PPO plans. What solutions can you think of that would allow practices to detect claims processing errors?
Yes. So unfortunately, there are no easy solutions for this, mainly because,
They don't make it easy. It's like
no.
they don't want to make it easy, because if they make it easy, then they have to give you money, right? So the harder
Right.
they make it, the less money they may, give you. It's almost like once you understand the economic engine of how businesses work, you
Mhm.
know how the game is going to get played. So you don't need to bang your head against the wall and let it breed.
Exactly. So it's important for you to play the game. If you're going to be in network, if you're going to stay in network, you have to understand the game. The dental associations, dental boards, they put together these CE guidelines for a reason. We all know why, to keep fresh with your education on clinical dentistry. But we're seeing an advancement on business CE and the importance of business CE. To me, insurance continuing education is important. Finding a good coach, finding a mentor, and a number of them of good people in the industry that give you the right answers, right? And one solution, well, remember I said it's the answer to this is difficult, the solution is difficult. One answer is legislation, and I know that there are some groups working on legislation, but the other answer in the practice, and I've seen many do this, which is also not an easy solution, is that there are some practices that pre-authorize everything in the major category of treatment, like everything major, and then they go into the minor restorative, and they start pre-authing those things too. That's a difficult solution, but for the practices that figure those things out, when they submit their pre-auths, their request for a pre-authorization, they get them back within 2 to 3 days. That's different than most practices that'll get them back 6 to 8 weeks down the road. You don't want to delay treatment to wait for a pre-authorization, but the problem is that a lot of times if you really don't know the coverage and you move forward with treatment, and you make a mistake and under collect from the patient, your life becomes hell trying to collect the right amount, or when insurance carriers play the downgrade game, right? So the reason why a lot of practices are sort of shifting towards the version of pre-authorizations that are submitted online, where they're getting them back within 2 to 3 days, is that I learned this in California, Aaron, that California has a law called the Knox-Keene Act. And that law basically says that if you obtain a pre-authorization, that's a pre-approval, which means that if a claim is subsequently denied for the treatment that was already pre-authorized, the insurance company is in the wrong. They have to reverse that denial and convert it into a paid claim based upon the pre-authorization. Well, I'm actually finding this true in almost every other state, where a treatment is denied and then proof of the pre-authorization immediately overturns the denial decision, right? So for those of you that want to get into pre-auths, I have some resources. You can contact me directly. I can give you the names of a few practices, as well as some really good insurance experts out there that have mastered that game on using the pre-authorizations to ensure that they use it as a tool to appeal denied claims, but that's what they're using to build the employer profiles properly, right? Because the pre-authorizations, they are designed they're basically a pre-EOB, so they're supposed to show exactly how the claim is going to be paid. What we're learning with the pre-authorizations is they don't make the same mistakes with the pre-authorization compared to an EOB. To me, the reason why is because not many practices do pre-authorizations. But in places like California, where it's the law to get that correct, the pre-authorization correct, or at least it's a pre-approval, we typically find that the pre-authorizations are sharing more truthful, more straightforward information about coverage for a patient. So those are at least that's one big solution that I'm thinking. Again, not an easy solution to tackle, but if you figure it out how to get those pre-auths quickly, what we do see is actually an increase in case acceptance. And we're trying to figure out why that is. But we have noticed a difference in practices that do those as a policy, the pre-auths as a policy, compared to practices in the same community that don't. The practices that do the pre-auths have very little insurance administration. But they don't see a lot of denials, claims denials, and they get paid on time, right? So a lot of the problems that we're talking about, including the mistakes on claims processing errors, they're easier to detect when you have your data set correct based upon the information you're getting on the pre-auths.
Right. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the last question I have for you. What do you recommend that can help a practice audit everything from claim processing errors for coding and billing?
Yes. So thanks for asking that, Naren. So we do that. We'd be happy to do that for any listener that, I mean, I encourage anybody, if you deal with insurance, whether you're in network or out of network, it doesn't hurt to do an audit to see how you're getting paid and what mistakes have been made, whether it's on the practice side, which every practice is going to make mistakes. That's just human nature. We all make mistakes, which is fine. But the question is what are the magnitude of mistakes and how much does that equate to in terms of lost revenue and revenue capture opportunities, right? So that's one area that we can help you detect, or at least audit, is just on your side is, okay, what's being done there to see if there is any room for improvement. But also on the insurance side, where are those opportunities, which is really easy, low-hanging fruit, right? A lot of times it's $200,000 to $300,000 of underpaid claims or claims that weren't even paid to you at all. So those are quick and easy solutions for you to know, kind of figure out and understand and know how to capture that. So if you just contact our office, we'd be more than happy to set up a complimentary audit to help you look at your numbers to see what's there. Check out veritasdentalresources.com, or you can give us a call at 888-808-4513 and schedule a call with one of our experts to get that set up.
Thank you so much, Ben. I learned a ton, and I really think, like we talked about, if you don't want to put up with this nonsense, definitely start looking at how do you get out of this nonsense by strengthening, your practice, making it relationship driven, building a strong marketing presence, and of course, any tool and every tool to help you, not be dependent on a PPO plan. So thank you for all the knowledge. But in the meantime, I hope you found this episode really, really useful around claims processing errors and what can you do, with regards to it. So thank you so much. Till we meet again next time, enjoy your week. If you like this episode, kindly share it with your friends. Write a review for us on iTunes and Google Play. And thank you, Ben, for your time today. Till we meet again, make this an awesome week.